By wisdom, God created the heavens and the earth. By wisdom, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, I do understand that in our secular academic institutions, whether collegiate or high school, they basically would have us to believe that there's no rhyme or reason as to the beginning of the heavens and the earth. Now, there certainly are theories that they posit, but in the end, it was just fortuitous events or good luck that things came into being and as they are. Rest assured, they would have us to believe that there is no intent, no design, no purpose in any of it. And certainly, there's no one behind any of it. It's just matter and it's just energy. That's all it is at the end of the day. Are they correct? Are they correct? This is what I was spoon fed the entirety of my existence in school. Are they right? So, this is what I remember. I remember an unchurched 10-year-old boy riding in the back of a car and looking into the heavens, seeing the rays of sunlight streaming through the clouds in unspeakable beauty, and wondering, wow, who has done that? Who has done that? Who? HWO. Who has done that? And I remember 6 years later, a young girl reading from the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, to that same boy. And while it was certainly unsettling, as it was, it validated what he innately knew years before. Nothing was by chance. Nothing was by luck, as it was to the origin of the world or its current state. That there was and is a God, and that he created, and that what he created speaks volumes to those who are in it. And I thought about that, and that little boy was me, by the way, and that little girl was her. And I thought, well, how many people actually know that? On a beautiful day like yesterday when we're driving around and the sun's beating down, or a beautiful day in the summer where we're driving and we see the rays streaming through the clouds, right? It's like heaven speaking to us. And I'm thinking, who's aware of that? Who knows that? And the Bible says, guess what? Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. That when they look into the heavens, that God exists, that God has created, that God sustains. Everyone knows this. Well, my Bible tells me, Romans chapter 1, it's very clear. It says this, for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen. Clearly. Being understood by the things that are made, even so his eternal power and his Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Everyone knows this. But what do some do? We exchange the truth of God for a lie. Christmas season this past year, Abel received a really cool gift. He got a tripod, and on the tripod is mounted a telescope, and it is awesome. And it helps us to see things in much greater detail that are in the heavens. Now, I really haven't had to have an opportunity to really use it until I think it was this week. Was it Thursday night? Might have been Thursday night. The sun is like 2/3 out, or excuse me, the moon is like 2/3 out. Maybe it was half, I don't know. We got our gloves, hats, clothes, drug everything out back, got the moon dialed in, and I'm telling you, it took my breath away. I could literally see the craters on the moon. I could see the topography a little bit of the moon. I could see the shades and the coloring of the moon, and I was blown away. I had to stop because my neck was hurting because it's way up here and I'm down here. But it was amazing. Abel seen it. We drug Lisa out. She actually took the time to look through the old telescope for a bit. I don't think she was as blown away as I was. But I could have sat there for hours. And I'm looking forward to when I can do it again and get a nice clear night. But here's the thing. Do people need a telescope to be able to see the cosmos? I say the cosmos, and I mean the heavens. Do people need a telescope to see that? The symmetry, the beauty, the variety, the harmony. No, you don't. The telescope's awesome because it sees it in greater detail. But you don't need the telescope to know this, to see this. Matter of fact, Psalm 19, which I believe is a psalm by David. I just had it. Psalm 19 helps us to understand that everybody can see that. Yeah. Psalm 19, verse 1, the heavens declare the glory of God. And the firmament, I like expanse, I like that term better, and the expanse shows his handiwork. Okay? So when you're looking into the heavens, there's a declaration by God to his glory of everything that has been created, and the expanse shows his handiwork. Day unto day utters speech. That's why I say that God's creation speaks to man. It's uttering speech. Night by night, it reveals knowledge. It reveals knowledge. Wow, that's intelligent. You know, when people use the term intelligent design, well, you're kind of right, not in the sense that you mean it because you don't want to actually acknowledge. That is intelligent. Immensely, incomprehensibly. Verse 3, there is no speech nor language where the voice is not heard. You can be anywhere in the globe. You all seeing the same things. Their line has gone out through all the world, and the world's to the end. In them he set a tabernacle for the sun, a tent or a dwelling, which is like a bridegroom coming out of its chamber and rejoices like a strong man running its race. Its rising is from one end of the heaven, its circuit to the other. Interesting that the sun is actually on a circuit as well. So are we around the sun. Isn't that astounding? That's God's declaration to his creation. Yoo-hoo, I'm up here. I created all this to display my glory. So no, not everybody needs a telescope to see this or understand it. And everybody knows, so says the Bible. But the interesting thing is here in our text is, what is the chief attribute utilized by God Almighty in bringing forth the creation? Wisdom, the very thing that we've been studying through as we've been moving through the book of Proverbs, right? Now, wisdom has certain nuances in the Hebrew. In other words, wisdom in its context is not always meaning the exact same thing. So here, wisdom takes on the technical skill or the ability in fashioning something, okay? The technical skill and the ability in fashioning something. So in other words, when you look to the heavens or you look to the earth, it's not randomness, okay? It's not randomness. It's not like throwing paint on a canvas. You see people sometimes that hang the big canvases on the wall, right? And then they take the paint, they dip it in the paint container, and then they just do this, right? And do this and do this and do this. They got a masterpiece. Well, the creating of God's heavens and earth was not like that, okay? It wasn't random at all. It wasn't trial and error. It wasn't God creating something and saying, hey, that's good. That didn't turn out so good. I'll try this instead. That's not the way that he created. It wasn't luck. In other words, when God created, it wasn't, well, that turned out better than I thought it would. No, not at all. It was what? It was by wise design and unparalleled skill, okay? Think of it this way. Lisa and I visited a lady last week, well, it's maybe been a week and a half, who collects bells. That's Steve's mom, by the way, okay. So when we visited her with her, she's got hundreds and hundreds of bells. And some of the bells are very ornate and unique in their designs. Okay? Now, what I know is this. The individual who made some of those bells did not take a lump of clay or a lump of glass and chuck it in the oven or the furnace and then hope that what comes out is a really nice bell. It doesn't work that way. What that individual does is they mold it and they shape it as the master designs it to be, right? As the creator has in his mind what he wants. And he uniquely designs that. Same way with the paint that was on the bells. Somebody didn't just splash paint on the bell. It was very specific in the manner of its artistry, right? To convey to us beauty or the creator's beauty of what it is they were designing so that we would see the same thing, okay? It's the same way everywhere we look around in creation, whether the heavens or the earth, it was wisely designed ornately by the creator so that we would see what it is that he's designed, which brings him glory and honor. That we would understand there is a God. He has created, and it is he who sustains and provides. Now, remember last week we said wisdom exceeds the value of money, right? Right. We said that money buys you all sorts of things in life and we get caught up with it. But we also relayed the fact that it was better to have wisdom than a lot of money in our pockets, right? Because wisdom will sustain us. Well, what I find interesting here is as wisdom is used to create, it helps me to understand that wisdom is even yet on a higher plane, utilized by God, right? In the bringing into his existence what didn't priorly exist. He used that wisdom. Now, as an example of wisdom, this is the first thing that came out of my head. I wrote it down. Think of the sun, okay? Think of the sun and the distance that we are from it. Think of our rotation around it. Think of the tilt of the earth. Think about the fact that we don't feel it one iota, that we are moving 1,000 miles an hour, okay? Approximately 1,000 miles an hour is how fast the old earth is turning. We don't feel any of that. That's mind-boggling. Yet that is the uniqueness and the unparalleled skill by which God has designed the sun and the earth. And you can think about the moon as well and its distance from the earth and the impact that it has on the tides and everything else, right? All of this is not by happen chance, is what I'm trying to say. It was uniquely designed by God, wisely designed by God. Wisdom, wisdom, wisdom everywhere you look. Genesis chapter 1. You can't really deal with this without going to Genesis chapter 1. If you'd like to follow along, please do so. Fairly lengthy. I didn't find a good place to cut this off. And in it, I just want us to understand, in the creating aspects of God, we see the wisdom in the creating of these things. Okay? Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now think about that for a minute. If you like not cosmology, there's a difference. If you like it, which it is astounding, the number of galaxies that are estimated blows your mind. And some of the pictures over the years that the Hubble or the Odysseys have brought back as far as the pictures are just mind-blowing. And the scope of the heavens, we don't know. It's like forever going, right? God created that. It wasn't just out there. It wasn't just out there. It didn't exist. What I'm saying is, in the beginning there was God. That's it. So all that we know, all that we interact with, all that we see, God created that in a moment of time. So it's just all wrapped up in one. And then we see the uniqueness of it, or the wisdom displayed, and what moves forward. Verse 2, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And we see the Spirit of God active, hovering over the face of the waters. And then God said, let there be light. And there was light. God saw the light, it was good. He divided the light from the darkness, called the light day, the darkness he called night. Verse 6, I'm going to skip the evening and morning part. Verse 6, God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the water. God made the expanse and divided the waters which were under the firmament, or expanse, from the waters which were above the expanse. So it was called. And God called the expanse heaven. Verse 9, God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place. Let the dry land appear. And so it was. God called the dry land earth. And the gathering together of the waters he called seas. God saw that it was good. God said, let the earth yield forth grass, the herb that yields seed, the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. And so it was. And the earth brought forth grass, the herb that yields seed according to its kind, the tree that yields seed, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. God saw that it was good. So, stop there for a minute. Most of us that I know right here, to some degree, we love interacting with nature. And a lot of us, it seems like, as the older we get, do a little gardening. Some of us plant seeds, some of us go get the plants. Where does all that stem from? Stem from God's creating in the beginning. But don't lose sight of the fact of the uniqueness of the seed and what it produces and the process that goes along with it. That's amazing. We would say, that's pretty wise. Indeed. Verse 14, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. So you ever notice how it is that the sun is really high in summertime, really low in the winter? It's not by happen chance. Verse 16, God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, which is the sun, and the lesser light, to rule the night, which is the moon. He made the stars also. He set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. God saw that it was good. Verse 20, God then said, let the waters abound with the abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth, above the face of the expanse of the heavens. The fact that creatures can swim, or if you'd like, the fact that there are animals or creatures that can swim, the fact that there are creatures or things that can fly. Do you not find that amazing? That was purposeful on the part of God's wise creating. We don't think about that stuff. We just think of the fish. We go fishing, we catch a fish, we eat him. We don't think about the fact of the uniqueness of his design and the fact that what he was doing in the water and how it is that he's swimming and how he's moving his tail and how he's breathing underwater. We don't think about any of that. But all of that speaks to the uniqueness of God's wisdom. Same thing with birds. Verse 20, let the waters abound with the abundance of living creatures. Let birds fly above the earth across the face of the expanse of the heavens. So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that moves with which the waters abound, according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, and he said, be fruitful, multiply, fill the waters and the seas, let birds multiply on the earth. Verse 24, then God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures according to its kind, cattle, creeping things, beasts of the earth, each according to its kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind. Everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind, God saw that it was good. I'm going to stop right there. We'll get in the man here in a little while, but I'm simply pointing out. There is such wisdom with God's creativity and everything that He has made. The things that the animals yield. I mean, even when we go to Toledo Zoo, that museum in Toledo Zoo, I could just kind of camp out there. That is really neat, as it shows the processes and the uniqueness of the plant life, animal life, insect life. And that one room where you can touch the furs, open the drawers, touch the furs, right? I can't keep myself from doing it. You see all the little skeletons, how they are actually assembled, how unique they are. See the eggs that they bear, and all the little insects. How does that not speak to design? How does that not speak volumes about God's work? It does. And yet men suppress that. And you know what's even more astounding is, in all that creativity, it just reminds us of God's wisdom. It reminds us that there was a master craftsman alongside of God through the creative process. Proverbs chapter 8, if you don't mind. Proverbs chapter 8. Verse 22. I think we read through this some time ago. We'll reread it. It's just once again relaying to us wisdom's presence in the creating. Proverbs 8, verse 22, and the Lord possessed me at the beginning of His way, before His works of old. This is wisdom talking. I have been established from everlasting, from the beginning, before there was ever even an earth. When there was no depths, I was brought forth, when there was no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills, I was brought forth. While as yet He had not made the earth or the fields, or even the primal dust. Primal means the beginning dust of the world. When He prepared the heavens, I was there. When He drew a circle on the face of the deep. When He established the clouds above. When He strengthened the fountains of the deep. When He assigned to the sea its limits so that the water would not transgress His command. When He marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was beside Him as a master craftsman. And I was daily His delight, rejoicing always before Him, rejoicing in His inhabited world, and my delight was with the sons of men. Just briefly, turn back to Psalm 136. It's not too far from where we're at. It's just to stress once again that wisdom was utilized. Psalm 136, verse 5. To Him who by wisdom made the heavens. I got numerous verses marked out that relay to us the same thing, that it was by wisdom, that it was by wisdom, that it was by wisdom that God created. It was not happen chance, folks. Everything that God made had intent. Everything that God made was by unique design. Everything that God made has purpose. Everything that God has made has purpose. You see the futility, like in the Old Testament, and even yet today, how men attribute the creation of the heavens to earth and the earth to gods, right? Greek gods, Roman gods, this god, that god. This God created the sun. This God created the moon. One of the animated movies that I like to watch years ago with the boys. It's called Mune, M-U-N-E. But what's advocated in it is there was a God who created the moon, and there was a God separate who created the sun. It's not accurate. It's just idolatry. There are no other gods who create. There are no other gods. That's the whole point. When you're reading through Jeremiah, he's like, you guys don't get it. All the idolatry that you're engaged in and the reverence that you give to them and the worship that you provide to them, it's not worth a spit because they're not real. They don't create. What don't you understand about me creating and about my glory do you not see? In Jeremiah chapter 10, you don't need to turn there, verse 11, he says, thus you shall say, To the gods that have not made the heavens and the earth, they will perish from the earth and under the heavens. For Yahweh has made the earth by his power. Yahweh has established the world by his wisdom, and he has stretched out the heavens at his discretion. Yahweh did that. Idols don't do that. They can't do that. It is God who has laid the foundation of the earth. And the second part of our verse says this. Let me get back to my text here. Nice thing is when you're working through books like this, you wear in a spot and you can go back to it pretty easy. Proverbs 3, verse 19, the first part was the Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By the second part, by understanding, he established the heaven. By understanding, he established the heavens. Understanding refers to reflective thought and intelligence. Reflective thought and intelligence. How often have you heard people ask, is there intelligence out there? Have you heard that? I've had people, I wonder, is there intelligence out there somewhere? And generally when they say that, they're talking about extraterrestrial life, right? That's how they view that. But I would say this. When somebody asks me the question, is there intelligence out there? I would say, yes. Yes, there is. And not in a spooky way. I mean, I could do that, right? There is. Everywhere in the universe, there is intelligence. Splashed before us. Put on grand display. That's smart. That's smart. That's smart. That's smart. Sure is. Who did that? Yahweh did. It's intelligence that established the heavens. In other words, God was thinking as only he can think when he created by wisdom. Do you see? Job. I guess I'm thinking of Job. Job 38. It's a little bit of a chastisement by Job because Job's not thinking so straight, and we understand why. Job 38. God reminds him both of his wisdom and intelligence. Job 38, the Lord answers Job out of a whirlwind and says, who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Prepare yourself like a man. That means I guess the old adage is pulling up your bootstraps. Get ready. Because I'm going to question you, and you will answer me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Who stretched out the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. We would see that as the angels. Who shut in the sea with its doors when it burst forth and issued from the womb, when I made the clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band? When I fixed my limit for it and set my bars and doors and said, this far you can come and no further will you? Have you commanded the morning since your days? Wow, that's rough. Job, have you commanded the morning since your days and caused the dawn to know its place? No, I did. I made these things. Who are you to question me? Truly, who are you to question me? I'm not going to read it, I guess. Mark it on your little notepads or your back of your bulletin. Psalm 104 is also another great psalm that declares to us the clarity of God's creative work in wisdom and understanding, or intelligence, if you'd like. Now, with all that being said, by extension, let me state something else, because I can't get away from it without saying this. In light of the fact that God created the heavens and the earth, guess what also he created? You. You. Every one of you. God created you. Let me go back to the beginning. Read just a few verses. You don't have to turn there if you don't want to. Genesis 1, verse 27. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. Chapter 2, verse 7. The Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. Acts chapter 17, 24. God, who made the world and everything in it, since he is Lord of heavens and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needs anything, because he gives to all life, breath, and all things. So, in other words, God created the heavens, God created the earth, God has created you and I, which means what? We are not independent of God. As much as we would like to break the chain that exists and the fact that we were created, you cannot break it. You are a created being, dependent on God. Just as the little critters you bring into your house that are so cute, like hamsters, and if mice are your thing, they might like the mice. They are dependent on you to provide for their sustenance, their preservation, and their well-being. Are they not? Yeah, because otherwise you're just going to die. Well, guess what? You and I are dependent on God for the preservation of our life, for the provisions of our life, for our sustenance in life. We are dependent creatures upon the one who creates. Why do I stress that? Because this is what that means then. You and I are accountable to the one who has created us. This is where people really don't like the argumentation. They like the idea that there is no God, that everything just kind of poof came into being and evolved on its own, and I am independent and I don't have to answer to anybody. Like that, don't we? What's the reality? Reality is we know different. We've suppressed what it is we know. We actually are created and dependent and accountable to the one who made us. And that is unsettling. What will the wise do? What will the wise do since we're talking about wisdom? The wise will take note and rightly do what? Fear the one who made them, because that's wisdom. Right? The beginning of the wisdom is what? The fear of God. The wise will fear God. What will the fool do? He will reject what it is that is shown to him with clarity. Don't be a fool. That's what I'm going to tell you. Don't be a fool and attribute to what has so clearly been demonstrated to you through the course of your life and the whole of it. Don't assign it as just good fortune. Look to the heavens. Look upon the earth. Look into the eyes of another human being. And see what God has created to display his glory. And for goodness sakes, recognize this, that not only did God do that, he provided us a means of salvation in his son Jesus Christ. So in other words, as accountable creatures to him, we know we sin. And we are not right before that God who creates. Because what's also clear is he's entirely unlike us. And that is right. God is holy and just and righteous, and we are none of those things. And that, as the Bible says someday, we'll be called into account for what it is we say, as Steve read this morning, what it is that we do. We have to answer for our sin. We can't answer for our sin. We have no means of cleaning the slate, no means of wiping away our sin before Him. But God has provided that means through His Son, Jesus Christ, so that we need not fear in the day of our death and then when we stand before our judge, that we can hear, "Welcome, come, and not depart from me into everlasting darkness."